Hi, this is Sarah. Um, I'm just tuning in today about all of this Me Too thing that's happening right now, where all of a sudden everybody is talking about their experiences of being groped or worse as women by men, or men by men, or however it all occurs. But I really think it's interesting that this cat is out of the bag. And um, what I really find interesting is that friends that I've had for 30 years sharing on Facebook incidents for them where they were, groped in the subway, or they were almost raped, or things that I didn't even know. And these are like dear close friends of mine. I never knew those stories. I never really shared the stories I have of, really inappropriate come ons from employers or bosses, or, all the close calls that I've had, which I find to be incredibly interesting. That even with the closest friends, I never really brought it up. They never really brought it up. And then a friend of mine, that it's so common in our experience that it's almost like not something to report on because it's so part of the background of what's happened. It's kind of like, we kind of shrug and just go, well, of course. Like, it's like, well, you really want to hear every meal I had when I was growing up? It's kind of like, it's almost, either pushed to the side or made mundane by the fact that it's so prevalent and it's so agreed upon in our culture that we, most women just kind of go, yeah, of course that happened to me multiple times, big deal. We actually hold it like big deal, or, super shame and bury it. And like, maybe we did something wrong or we brought it on, or, all that. But then a friend of mine shared with me something that a friend of hers had shared with her about some information from a book called The Gift of Fear. I don't know who the author is, but it's a book about how fear actually informs us, and in a way that can be really useful. And one of the things this person was sharing from that book is that men's worst fear is to be humiliated, especially by a woman. And women's worst fear is of being killed by a man. And for me, when my friend shared that with me, that just created a context where all of a sudden it makes a lot of sense why people haven't shared these stories, why it's been just in the background, and why even when these events happen to me or happen to other people, why generally, we just attempted to get out of it without making a lot of waves, without calling this guy out, without humiliating him, without, acting like it was inappropriate, just like, kind of like, whatever I need to do to extricate myself from this situation, that's what I'm going to do, and then just move on. Because if our background fear as women is, if we do make a stink, or we do humiliate this person, that the retaliation is going to be extreme, even maybe to the point of being killed. That would put a lid on it. And also, yeah, it just makes sense then that, women just cope, and really haven't brought it much to light. So I just think it's healthy that the cat's out of the bag, that the lid's off. Um, Men aren't wrong, women aren't right. It's not really about that. It's just about something that's predominated in our culture about men being predatory. Men have been cultivated and brought up to be and conditioned to be um, relatively predatory sexually toward women and even children. And, like, I mean, just all of the phrasing and none of the real instruction that men have been conditioned into in our culture. Like he's got to sow his wild oats, and it's just a man's needs, and all the ways it's been normalized, all the locker room stuff that nobody stands up and says, maybe we should cut this out. I mean, all the ways that it's been okay. Even this is an interesting one. I just heard the Donald Trump thing, where he was on that bus with the guy from Entertainment Tonight or whatever, and he was saying all the stuff about the pussy grabbing and all that, which I had never heard before. I mean, I heard about it, but I had never heard actually the tape of that conversation. Well, how come nobody's pointing out to the fact that everybody else who was on that bus, including the guy who was talking to Donald Trump when Donald Trump was saying all of these things, that guy was encouraging what Donald Trump was saying. That guy was agreeing with what Donald Trump was saying. That guy was saying, yeah, what about her? That guy was like laughing with all the things. He was absolutely doing agreeing behaviors with everything that Donald Trump was sharing. So unless that was, supposed to be a gotcha, setup, isn't that guy culpable for all of the same behaviors? I mean, maybe he hasn't actively grabbed a woman's crotch, but I don't know, maybe he has. But he was completely off the hook in the matter, which is interesting because it's the culture of agreement that allows it to become extreme. So, I don't know. I just feel like there's a lot of ownership, and women are not all victims. We've been trained to, just move on as quickly as we can, and men are not all predators, obviously. But there's a lot of agreement in the culture that it be maintained this way. And, the true meaning of apocalypse, that word, is the great revealing. And that's the times we're in. Nothing can really be swept under the rug anymore. And it's just as well that we're getting real conscious and owning our experience and what we've tolerated and what's lived as in the background, and that it's all coming up for us to really review and say, is this okay or is it not okay? Is it going to be something we're going to tolerate in our culture, or are we kind of done with it? Incest is another matter, and it's all kind of in the same continuum. But it's so prevalent and it's so big, and there's, it's a good time to just own it and stop it in our world. Thank you. Have a great day.